At 79, Goldie Hawn has seen it all, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. But there are 6 people from her past who she openly admits to really disliking. Who are they? And what happened to make her feel this way? Join us as we dive into the real side of Goldie Hawn you've never heard before. The woman behind the smile. Goldie Hawn is a name many people recognize immediately. Her bright smile and infectious laugh have lit up screens for decades. But behind that cheerful image lies a story of deep resilience, hard work, and a determination to be taken seriously in an industry that hasn't always made it easy for women like her. From her early days as the bubbly blonde in comedies, to winning an Oscar and becoming a respected figure in Hollywood, Goldie's journey is much more than just fun and glamour. Goldie first captured the public's heart with her charm and comedic timing. She brought lightness and humor to every role, quickly becoming a favorite among audiences. But she never settled for just being the girl next door, or the pretty face in the crowd. Over time, she proved she had the talent and depth to take on more serious parts and even win the highest honors in film. Her Oscar win was a turning point, showing the world that she was more than just a smile. She was a serious artist. Throughout her career, Goldie has been known for her grace and professionalism. She handles herself with calmness and diplomacy, even when faced with difficult people or situations. This isn't someone who seeks drama or conflict for the sake of it. Instead, she chooses peace. She believes in rising above petty fights and letting her work speak for itself. This quiet strength has helped her outlast the old Hollywood boys' club culture, a time when men held most of the power and often dismissed women's contributions or treated them as less than equals. Goldie's core values are clear. She holds professionalism at the highest level. She believes in being kind yet firm, and she knows when to walk away from situations that don't respect her worth. Despite the warmth and friendliness she shows publicly, Goldie is not naive. She has faced disappointment, disrespect, and exclusion from some of the most powerful men in the industry. This has left her with a quiet, hard-earned distrust and dislike, not out of anger or impulse, but out of a clear understanding of how some people treated her unfairly. What makes Goldie's story especially compelling is how she has maintained her dignity and strength throughout these challenges. She didn't respond with public outbursts or scandals. Instead, she chose to remove herself from toxic situations and people, focusing on her peace and her craft. This is why, even now, she looks back on certain figures in her life with disappointment and distaste. These feelings come from being sidelined, underestimated, or hurt by those she once respected or worked alongside. As we explore the 6 men Goldie Hawn names as those she truly hates, it's important to remember that her feelings are not about personal grudges or fleeting moments. They come from years of experience, lessons learned, and a desire to protect herself from the kind of harm that can silently shape a career and a life. Her story isn't just about conflict, it's about survival, strength, and knowing when to stand firm. Stick around. Next, we'll dive into the first of these complicated relationships and see what really happened behind the scenes. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is a Hollywood legend. Known for his tough guy roles and powerful screen presence, he represents an older era of filmmaking, one filled with old-school charm and respect from many. But for Goldie Hawn, that charm often felt like something else entirely. A barrier that kept her from being seen as an equal in the industry. Kirk's fame and legacy are huge. He was a big star at a time when Hollywood was dominated by men who held all the power. But that old-fashioned way of doing things often meant women were treated as less important, no matter how talented they were. For Goldie, this meant dealing with a constant clash between Kirk's classic style and her own hard-earned respect as a serious actress and professional. Over the years, Goldie faced many moments where Kirk's behavior showed how he really saw her, not as a peer, but as someone less than that. At industry events, his actions were clear signs of condescension. He would greet her with slow hand kisses, winks that seemed more like flirtation than genuine respect, and a theatrical manner that made it hard for her to feel valued as a professional. Instead of being treated as a colleague, Goldie often felt like she was on display, a pretty face rather than a serious artist. This kind of treatment might seem small or harmless to some, but for Goldie, it was a death by 1,000 cuts. Every interrupted panel discussion where her insights were ignored, and every time credit went to a man while her contributions were overlooked, built up over time. These moments piled on, creating a frustrating and discouraging experience. Goldie saw firsthand how women in Hollywood were often pushed aside or talked over, even when they were the ones driving the conversation or project forward. What makes this situation even more striking is how Goldie handled it. She never publicly called Kirk out or confronted him in harsh ways. Instead, she chose grace and diplomacy. She understood that fighting openly might harm her career or reputation, so she kept her frustration private. Behind closed doors, she felt deeply irritated and disappointed. But in public, she maintained her professionalism and calm. One key moment stands out in this history. During a development meeting for a film project, Kirk interrupted Goldie mid-sentence. Instead of responding with anger or trying to prove herself in that moment, she quietly stood up and walked out. It was a silent but powerful statement, a refusal to be dismissed or disrespected. That walkout showed how she would no longer accept being treated as less than a professional. It was a turning point that symbolized her resilience in the face of old Hollywood attitudes. This clash between Kirk Douglas and Goldie Hawn represents something larger. Kirk stood for a Hollywood that often failed to recognize women's equal talent and contributions. His behavior reflected a time when male stars ruled the industry and women had to fight just to be heard. Goldie, on the other hand, became a symbol of change. She showed that women could survive, thrive, and demand respect, even in a world built to hold them back. Their story isn't just about two people. It's about how Hollywood's history has shaped the treatment of women and how those women responded. Goldie's resilience, her choice to maintain dignity, and her choice of peace over conflict stand in contrast to the condescending legacy represented by Kirk. Despite the challenges, Goldie Hawn's career and reputation grew stronger. She proved time and again that she belonged at the table, not just as a pretty face or a charming presence, but as a talented and respected professional. And though Kirk Douglas's old-school ways faded with time, the effects of that era still linger in stories like hers. Keep watching as we now explore the story of another man from Goldie's past, someone whose influence was different but equally important in shaping her journey. Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty was one of the biggest names in Hollywood during the 1970s. Known for his good looks, charm, and a string of high-profile romances, he had a reputation that almost seemed mythic. Many people saw him as the ultimate movie star, a man who could get whatever he wanted, both on and off the screen. But behind all that charm was a more calculated side, one that Goldie Hawn quickly learned to recognize. Goldie was one of the many women in Hollywood who caught Warren's eye, but unlike others, she was careful. She saw the pattern in how he treated women, how he collected relationships like trophies, moving from one to the next without much care for the feelings or futures of those involved. Goldie didn't want to be just another name in his long list. She valued her career and her self-respect too much to be drawn into that world, so she politely declined Warren's advances. She kept things professional and friendly, but made it clear she wasn't interested in being part of his story. That decision didn't come without consequences. Warren didn't take rejection well. What started as polite distance slowly turned into coldness. Invitations to events where she might have gained opportunities began to fade. It was subtle at first, little things that might have seemed accidental, but soon it was clear there was a quiet effort to block her progress. This kind of sabotage wasn't loud or public. There were no scandalous headlines or dramatic confrontations. Instead, Warren's influence worked through whispers and rumors behind the scenes. Industry insiders would pass along quiet warnings, and slowly, opportunities for Goldie became harder to find. People in Hollywood knew how powerful Warren was, and many didn't want to cross him. This created an invisible barrier that held Goldie back at times, even though she never gave him a real reason to do so. What made this situation even tougher was Goldie's response. She didn't fight back with gossip or accusations. She kept her silence and stayed professional, focusing on her work rather than the drama. This calm and steady approach was a form of resistance in itself, showing that she wouldn't be dragged into petty battles or lose her dignity over someone else's actions. The final time Goldie and Warren crossed paths was at an awards show. There was no big scene, no angry words exchanged. Instead, there was just an icy smile from Warren that said everything. It was a cold, quiet moment that captured the tension between them without any need for drama. Goldie met that coldness with her own quiet strength, walking away with her head held high. Their contrasting legacies show two very different sides of Hollywood. Warren Beatty's story is one filled with drama, power plays, and a trail of personal and professional ups and downs. Meanwhile, Goldie Hawn's story is about graceful autonomy, carving out her own path with professionalism, resilience, and a strong sense of self-worth. She chose peace over conflict, even when the stakes were high and the obstacles real. Goldie's experience with Warren Beatty is a reminder of the challenges women often faced in Hollywood, especially when powerful men tried to control their careers or personal lives. But it also shows the power of quiet strength and professionalism as a way to stand firm, even when faced with unfair treatment. Up next, we'll dive into the story of another key figure from Goldie's career, someone whose influence was quieter but left a lasting mark. Stay tuned! Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn came together for the 1987 comedy Foul Play, a project that looked like it could showcase great chemistry between two comedic stars. On paper, it seemed like a perfect match. Both were known for their humor and timing, and many hoped their collaboration would lead to something special on screen. But behind the cameras, the experience was very different. Chevy Chase had a reputation for being difficult to work with, and on this film, that reputation sadly proved true. His ego was large, and he often refused to respect the script or the people around him. Instead of following the planned scenes, Chevy frequently improvised in ways that disrupted the flow of the story. While improvisation can sometimes bring fresh ideas, in this case, it sabotaged the carefully crafted work of the writers and directors. This behavior frustrated not only the crew, but also Goldie, who took her craft seriously. Chevy's volatile attitude didn't stop at improvisation. He was known to throw tantrums when things didn't go his way, creating tension on set. Several crew members later described moments when Chevy mocked people working behind the scenes, treating them with cruelty and disrespect. For example, a makeup artist recalled how Chevy would loudly complain about her work, even though it was praised by others. A camera assistant mentioned how Chevy's outbursts delayed shooting and made the atmosphere tense and uncomfortable. For Goldie, who had always carried herself with professionalism and grace, working with Chevy was a challenge. She tried to stay patient and focused on the work, but even her famous calm was pushed to the edge. She saw how Chevy's behavior wasn't just annoying, it was harmful to the whole project. It affected morale on set and made it harder for everyone to do their best. As filming went on, the relationship between Chevy and Goldie broke down. There was less and less communication between the two stars, and their once promising partnership grew silent and strained. The easy, natural chemistry they showed on screen was overshadowed by the tension behind the scenes. When the movie was released, the hope for a sequel quickly faded. Goldie made it clear that she wasn't interested in revisiting the experience. She declined any offers to reunite with Chevy for future projects, understanding that working together again would likely bring back the same problems. This clear, not interested, wasn't just about one bad experience. It reflected a deeper contrast between Chevy's toxic ego and Goldie's steady professionalism. While Chevy let his difficult personality control the set, Goldie remained committed to her values, respecting the work, respecting the people involved, and maintaining her own dignity. This difference in approach showed clearly why their partnership couldn't survive beyond that one film. Goldie's choice to walk away speaks to her strength and her unwillingness to sacrifice her peace or career for anyone else's ego. She continued to build a successful and respected career, proving that professionalism and grace are powerful tools in an industry that can sometimes be chaotic and challenging. The story of Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn on Foul Play is a reminder that talent alone doesn't guarantee a smooth working relationship. Respect, kindness, and professionalism matter just as much, sometimes more. When those are missing, even the most promising projects can fall apart. Next up, we'll look at another story from Goldie's career, one involving a man whose power was less obvious but just as impactful behind the scenes. Bill Murray. When Goldie Hawn and Bill Murray were first paired up for a comedy project, expectations were sky high. Both were known for their unique humor and charm, and many hoped that together they'd create something unforgettable. Fans looked forward to seeing their combined talents on screen, imagining a perfect mix of wit and laughter. But behind the scenes, things did not go as smoothly as everyone had hoped. From the start, Bill Murray's behavior was unpredictable, and not in a good way. One of the earliest signs of trouble came during the table reads, those first rehearsals where the cast gathers to read the script aloud. Bill was late to many of these sessions, showing little regard for the time or the effort others put in. His tardiness wasn't just inconvenient, it sent a message that he didn't respect the process or his colleagues. When Bill did arrive, he often hijacked the script with improvisations that weren't funny or helpful. Instead, they were disrespectful to the story and the people involved. He would mock the dialogue, pulling exaggerated faces and ruining emotional moments that were supposed to have real feeling. These interruptions made it hard for the cast and crew to focus or take the scenes seriously. One moment stood out and has been remembered by many who were there. During a rehearsal, Bill snapped at Goldie in front of everyone, saying, "Why don't you try acting like you've done drama before?" The room fell silent. Then there was awkward, uncomfortable laughter, laughing to cover up the shock and discomfort of the moment. Goldie, known for her calm and graceful demeanor, quietly got up and walked out of the room. She didn't make a scene or respond in anger, but her walkout spoke volumes. Despite this humiliation, Goldie never publicly called Bill out or made a fuss. Instead, she handled the situation with quiet dignity. But behind the scenes, the incident marked a clear line. Bill Murray was firmly blacklisted by Goldie in her private circle. She chose not to work with him again, and she made sure that word spread among her trusted contacts. It was a strategic decision, protecting herself from future chaos and disrespect. This experience also influenced Goldie's career choices moving forward. After dealing with Bill's unpredictable and often rude behavior, she began to shift away from working with male co-stars who brought too much ego and disruption to the set. She wanted projects that valued professionalism and respect, where she could be the steady presence rather than getting caught in the storm of difficult personalities. Being the steady hand in a hurricane of male ego took a toll on Goldie emotionally. It wasn't just about handling one bad day or a single rude comment. It was about enduring constant disrespect and having to stay calm and professional while others behaved wildly. That kind of pressure wears on anyone over time, even someone as experienced and confident as Goldie Hawn. Goldie's strength lay in her ability to keep her composure and protect her career without creating public drama. She chose her battles carefully, fighting where it mattered, but always with grace. This experience with Bill Murray was one of those defining moments that shaped her approach to work and relationships in Hollywood. The story of Bill Murray and Goldie Hawn reminds us that talent and charm alone aren't enough to make a good working relationship. Respect and kindness are just as important. When those are missing, even the funniest, most talented people can cause serious damage to a project and the people involved. Next, we'll dive into the story of another powerful figure in Hollywood whose clash with Goldie revealed even more about the challenges she endured and how she kept her dignity intact. Sean Penn. Goldie Hawn has long been known not just for her smile and her acting talent, but also for her deep commitment to causes close to her heart. One such cause is mental health, something she has passionately supported over the years. So, when she attended a high-profile mental health charity gala, it was more than just a public appearance. It was a way to lend her voice and support to something meaningful. But what happened at that event was a sharp reminder of the challenges she faced, even from some of Hollywood's most intense personalities. Sean Penn was also at the gala, a man known for his strong opinions and often intense demeanor. While many admired his dedication to activism, his behavior toward Goldie that night was far from respectful. From the moment they crossed paths, Penn's impatience seemed performative, as if he was showing the crowd that he was above the usual politeness expected at such events. His body language said it all. He avoided eye contact, turned his body slightly away from Goldie, and tapped his foot impatiently. When Goldie tried to engage him in conversation about the event and why the cause mattered to her, Penn made a snide remark that stunned those nearby. "You should stick to giggling." The comment was sharp, cutting through the warmth Goldie usually radiates and striking at her very essence, her charm and humor. Despite the sting of the words, Goldie didn't respond with anger or defensiveness. Instead, she raised her glass in a quiet, dignified toast to the cause, then turned and exited the room. It was a graceful retreat, a way of showing that she would not be drawn into negativity or drama, even when confronted with such rudeness in a public space. What made the moment even more difficult was the emotional toll it took on Goldie. She wasn't embarrassed by the comment or the public nature of the dismissal. Instead, the tears she shed afterward were born of exhaustion from constantly having to maintain grace in the face of coldness and dismissiveness. It was a quiet sadness, a recognition that no matter how far she had come, some attitudes in Hollywood remained stubbornly unchanged. After that night, Goldie made a quiet decision. She would avoid Sean Penn professionally and personally going forward. It wasn't about holding a grudge or starting a feud. Instead, it was about protecting herself and her peace of mind. Penn's style of wounded intensity, his sharp edges wrapped in a cloak of activism, felt like a weapon against optimism and kindness, qualities Goldie values deeply. This encounter showed another side of Hollywood that often goes unnoticed, the way some people use their power and reputation to put others down, even in places meant for healing and support. Goldie's response was a lesson in dignity, choosing to leave rather than engage in conflict, holding on to her values instead of letting someone else's bitterness drag her down. It's important to understand that Sean Penn's reaction wasn't about Goldie personally. It was more about his own struggles, his brand of intensity that sometimes turned cold and dismissive toward those who didn't fit his worldview. But for Goldie, it was a reminder that she had to choose her battles carefully and protect her own well-being. This story adds another layer to Goldie Hawn's legacy, not just as a beloved actress, but as a woman who faced the harsh realities of Hollywood with quiet strength and professionalism. Her journey has been about more than just success on screen. It has been about navigating a complex industry with grace, even when faced with people who didn't share her values. And now, if you think this was the last tough encounter for Goldie, wait until you hear about the next figure whose clash with her showed just how much strength she really has. Dustin Hoffman. Goldie Hawn's career was already impressive by the time she decided to take a strategic turn towards serious drama. Known primarily for her bubbly comedic roles, she wanted to prove she was more than just a fun-loving blonde on screen. This shift was about showing her depth as an actress and earning respect for her craft. But one pivotal moment during an audition with Dustin Hoffman showed just how tough that road would be. The audition was for a highly anticipated, prestigious film, one that could have opened new doors for Goldie. She entered the casting room with confidence, prepared to demonstrate her dramatic skills. But instead of support or encouragement, she was met with cold dismissal. Dustin Hoffman, already a heavyweight in the industry, took charge in a way that was both public and humiliating. As she performed her scene, Hoffman cut in with sharp critiques disguised as direction. "You're not connecting," he said bluntly. "Then, you're still playing it like a sitcom." These words weren't just feedback. They were jabs that struck at her core. It was as if her years of hard work and talent were being dismissed in a matter of moments. The tone was cold and dismissive, lacking any hint of encouragement. The room felt heavy. Those present, including casting directors and assistants, seemed to side quietly with Hoffman, creating an atmosphere that made the humiliation even worse. Instead of feeling like a safe space for an actor to grow and prove themselves, the audition became a place of judgment and exclusion. Goldie, ever graceful, held her composure but felt the sting deeply. She finished the audition with her usual professionalism but made a quiet, immediate decision afterward. She withdrew from the project. It was a clear statement. She would not fight to be taken seriously by men who had already decided she was a joke. This decision was bold, especially in an industry where many actresses might have felt forced to endure such treatment for the sake of opportunity. Goldie's famous line, "I won't fight to be taken seriously by men who have already decided I'm a punchline," quickly became legendary. It captured the frustration of many women in Hollywood who have faced similar dismissals and unfair judgments. For Goldie, this moment was more than just a failed audition. It was a turning point. Rather than allowing that experience to derail her, it reinforced her resolve. She understood that respect and equality wouldn't always be handed to her, especially in an environment dominated by old-school attitudes. Instead, she chose to focus on roles and projects that valued her talent and treated her with dignity. Her career continued to thrive, but now with a sharper sense of what she would and wouldn't accept. This experience also highlighted the challenges women often face in Hollywood, especially when trying to break out of the boxes others have placed them in. Goldie's journey from comedic icon to serious actress wasn't just about changing roles, it was about fighting for her voice and her worth in a tough industry. Even after this difficult moment, Goldie maintained her trademark grace and professionalism. She didn't publicly criticize Hoffman or the casting process. Instead, she used her experience as a quiet lesson and a source of strength. It was clear that her commitment to peace and respect didn't mean tolerating disrespect. It meant standing firm in her values without creating unnecessary conflict. This audition with Dustin Hoffman remains a powerful story in Goldie Hawn's legacy. It shows the reality behind the glamour, a story of resilience, dignity, and standing up to unfair treatment without losing one's sense of self. It reminds us that even the brightest stars face shadows, and how they handle those shadows defines their true strength. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next.